Hey everybody, it's Travis from the Berm Show. There's a brand new app called Lower 22 Vets for veterans and active duty military members. This app combats suicide amongst veterans by bringing veterans together. So please go check it out. Sign up is free and it's easy, and there's monthly giveaways. You can find the app on Google Play and Apple Store. So sign up now. Thank you. It's getting there. But yeah, happy to have you on. I mean, how you doing?
Good. Happy Friday.
Oh, I know. Long weekend coming up. So
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited.
yeah, I mean,
Now you're on the West Coast.
yeah, I'm in California over here on the kind of by the desert. I guess that's got to be technical. I guess I'm close to Palm Springs, about 30 minutes. So yeah, nestled up in a little town right by the mountains. So it's pretty nice.
I'm in New Jersey, which is not that nice.
Oh gosh, I didn't know that. I mean, I would have tried to do something earlier then.
No, that's okay.
And you're also the first woman I've had on the show, so that's
Good.
freaking awesome. Also, everybody's just been dudes so far. We had nothing but guys on, and it's nice to mix it up a little bit. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we were checking out your podcast page, and that's why my fiance thought he saw that there was somebody. I think it was just talking about MMA, but he thought it was like, oh my god, that guy's an MMA fan.
yeah, I did a episode with one of my friends from high school. He's into MMA and stuff, so we kind of talked about it a little bit. That's funny. Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, I've kind of started going this route just randomly, I guess. Like I originally started podcasting with a friend that I was in the Navy with, and it kind of just fell apart. But it's like one of those things I've always thought about. It's like, this is super cool. I've known a lot of veterans, and it'd be cool just to talk to other veterans and kind of get their stories.
I think it's awesome, and I was really flattered when you asked. You know, I've been getting more into advocacy lately, so this is a great opportunity.
Well, I think I saw your stuff on that Military Blaze thing
Okay,
pop
yeah.
up. No, it's funny because the guy that I did episode with, Adam, we crack up about because they're like, man, they just like take your money and stuff. But at the same time, that's how I met him, and now that's how I met you. So I'm like, hey, there's I guess something's working with it, you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I kind of want to get into it. So exactly, you know, a little bit of your story, your background, and what led you to join the military and which branch and stuff like that.
Sure, just get into it.
Yeah, okay. Just shoot from the hip.
Okay. So, well, I'm from Maine originally, and so grew up, born and raised in Maine. Went to, was the oldest in my family, the only girl, protective dad, single dad, very protective. When I graduated, I went to UMass Amherst. That's where I went to college, and I did about a year there, and I just pretty much partied too hard. My dad said, you know what, you're coming home, you need to figure out what you're going to do. So he sort of pulled the plug on college for me. Went home back to Maine, and I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. So I went and got my certified nurse's assistant registration, and I started taking care of patients at a local nursing home. And that was really eye-opening for me. Really taking care of patients at that stage of their life. It's a lot of hard work. And what it really made me realize is that I loved healthcare. I wanted to stay in it, but I didn't want to be doing that. I wanted to, I would see, right. So I would see the nurses, I would see the respiratory therapists and everyone. I thought, that's where I want to be. So I knew I wanted to do something more, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to get there. I was, like any 18-year-old, I was broke. I had no money. I had this really crappy apartment. I was like literally scraping change from underneath the seat of my car to pay for gas. And one of my friends had joined the Air Guard, and I caught up with her one day, and she was telling me about it. And she said, Shannon, she said, you should think about it. said it's a great opportunity for me. They'll train you in a job, and it could be great. So I actually then, and nobody in my family, well, my great grandfather had been in the military, but nobody else had been in the military.
Wow.
I
Like,
was
usually that's not the case. Usually it's everybody I've ever talked to, it's like their brother, their dad, mom, somebody, every day was just, that's how it was for me. It's like
well,
strong military family.
my grandfather served in the Navy in World War II, but aside from him, nobody in my family had been, and I was probably the last person that they thought was going to join. So, but my friend, she said, you should go talk to a recruiter and find out what it's all about. And so I went to the local recruiter and I started talking to him, and he was like, you know what, you should take the ASVAB and find out, let's get your scores, and if you want to be in healthcare, I can probably find you something. So I went, I took the test, I did really well. And he said, look, I can, we have this job. It's a medical laboratory technician. You'll work at a hospital. Can you leave in like 2 weeks? And
oh, dang.
I said, you know what? I had nothing holding me back. So I went. I was 19 and off I went to the Air Force, basic training in San Antonio, Texas in June. And I was this little Maine girl, out of the state for the first time, really. I did my basic training. Great. For me, it just clicked. Something about it. I think maybe it's because my dad was really strict. I was the oldest child. It was kind of that combination of things where I just sort of really fit in naturally with, following rules. And I kind of figured out really quick, like what I had to do to be successful in basic training. And so I finished that. And then I went to tech school at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, where I did about 9 months, in a hospital there, which was great. And then I got my orders for my permanent station one day, and it said Spangdahlem. And I thought, where is Spangdahlem?
Wow, where's that?
Yeah, well, it's in Germany. Turns out it's in Germany.
Man, so you went from Maine to Texas to Ohio, and then basically the other side of the map. That is...
and I didn't want to go. That was the kicker. So I didn't want to go because I was dating a guy at the time who was in Ohio, and I did not want to leave. I wanted to stay, and I actually tried to trade the assignment with other people in my group. Nobody would trade with me, and so off I went to Germany. And I'll tell you what, of course, the boyfriend didn't work out, which is great because there was so much more beyond that relationship. But it turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I ended up being stationed at Spangdahlem Air Force Base, which is about an hour south of Frankfurt, maybe half an hour drive from Luxembourg. It was amazing. I worked at Bitburg Hospital, which is a tiny little hospital. We were I got to live off base in this little tiny community, and my landlords were German, and it was just amazing. Traveled, really, it was just such a great experience for me. I knew when I had joined the Air Force, though, that I probably wasn't going to make a lifetime career out of it. I really wanted to go to nursing school, and I saw it as a vehicle to, get me there. So I did my 4 years, and I will say I was pretty, again, the lifestyle really fit for me. I got an opportunity to really be, do a lot of things, be successful at a lot of things. I got early promotion. I was awarded Airman of the Base one quarter, so it just kind of, it fit for me. But again, I knew my heart really wanted to be in nursing school. And so I did my 4 years, and I got out and then went back to Maine and went to nursing school and took off from there, I guess.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I've served with people that join just to go to school also, or along, something along those lines. They know they're not going to stay in for life. And it, like when you're in, or at least in the Navy for us, like some of the guys would like give those individuals a hard time. They're like, oh, you're only here to get a free ride, college. But like I went to college after I got out. That wasn't my initial intention, but it shouldn't be frowned upon. It's like, you still earned it though. That's your 4 years. You gave up 4 years of your life to something.
Absolutely.
Whether that's the reason why you joined or not. A lot of people for some reason are sticklers about that I've come across with, especially when I was in. Not so much now, like when people are out and they all go to college. Now everybody does it, even the ones that would complain about people doing that. So it's like, okay, it's one of those things. Why not use it, even if that's not the reason why you joined?
Well,
You'd be
and
stupid
and for
not
me,
to.
yeah, and it was. I mean, when I look back at my life, I'm 45 now, so that was 25 years ago, and I look back at my life, and everything I've done has been an opportunity, a learning opportunity for me. And it was, I mean, and don't get me wrong, it was great. I got the GI Bill and helped pay for my college, but the experiences that I got, it made me grow up. I learned how to budget my finances. I really credit my time in the Air Force to making me a really strong, independent woman. I learned, you had to be responsible for yourself. I had to, you know, get myself up, take care of the little things. As a 20 year old, you're just not used to these things. So it forced me to grow up. I, the diversity of being outside of Maine, working with a team for the first time, really, understanding what discipline is and integrity. Those are the core values of the military. I really do take with me. And I think that they prepared me for every step that happened after that, whether it was, going to nursing school, working in the critical care unit, um, and then later on in my life when I got my diagnosis. And now what I'm really trying to do is, more advocacy work for women veterans that are fighting breast cancer. So when I look back at that, I mean, quite honestly, I feel like, I feel like everybody should serve. I think it should be a requirement, honestly. I have 4 kids, and I think it would be. I know they're not all going to go to college, but I think serving there's just something about it that makes you grow up, and it makes you really get a perspective on life that otherwise you may never have.
That's very true, and it's funny because that's like something my grandpa, who was like played a large role in my life growing up. He was in the Navy, and that's what he'd always tell me. He said every American has a moral obligation
Mm-hmm.
to serve, and it's growing up I think it's stupid. I'm like whatever, but I ended up listening, obviously, joining the military. But I think you're right. I mean, like you see, especially in today's society, there's so many people that just want things given to them
Mm-hmm.
without having to really give up anything or sacrifice anything. And it's because I've seen with the whole free college thing or get rid of student loans, a lot of ex-military or even active duty military people are like, no, that's what about us? We earned it, and now we're just going to give it away to everybody. And that's like we
Right.
were talking about. A lot of people join just to go to college. It's a way for them to make that step
Oh
going
yeah.
into their early 20s, late 30s, whatever, however old they are, And I think it's not unfair. It's kind of I guess, like a slap in the face to individuals that are willing to give up something to get that free college
Absolutely.
versus those who know the risk. You got to take student loans, and
Right.
if you're going to complain about it, then you shouldn't, I guess, do it in a
Right.
sense.
Well, and I think that's, the other piece, like the financial part of it too. I mean, I don't remember how much I made as a airman, but it was,
Mm.
I think my paycheck was like $300 every 2 weeks or something. Right. And, but you just, you figured out like how to budget and okay, so I have $300 and, after I pay for my car insurance, I actually shipped my car over to Germany. So I had
Oh crap!
had my car, but that was it. I didn't have any money after my car payment. Which by the way made me like a total cool kid that I had a car. I had a vehicle over there. I was everybody's friend because I had a vehicle. But.
Well, that's how it works, though. Like, one of my best friend, he got a Jeep after deployment because we're not all tax free, but you go to war zones and stuff, and you get tax free pay. So I don't know what I did with mine, but I know I didn't buy anything that I have today with it.
Right.
But he bought a Jeep, and we just went everywhere. Man, we got totally different freedom now. We're stationed in San Diego, so we're like, man, we can drive everywhere instead of taking the bus and the trolley system that they have. Having a vehicle in the military is like being the kid in high school that has a car
Yeah.
and the license. Everybody jumping in. Everybody's like, what are we doing?
We drove all over Europe, and that's the Autobahn, right? So Germany has the Autobahn, and my car, it was a Chevy Cavalier, and I'll never forget. I was driving to Frankfurt Airport and driving around Germany, and like I thought I was going fast, 75, 80 miles an hour, and the car was just fly by you because there literally is no speed limit on the Autobahn.
So that's what's cool about being stationed like in Germany or even just in Europe.
Mhm.
You get I mean, all those other countries are right there. So you say you traveled, do you go a bunch of, what other countries did you, like on the weekend or whenever you had time off, you're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm going to go check it out?
Yeah. So we would, I could drive to France, was, Luxembourg and France were really close. Drove to Paris, drove to Amsterdam, took the train to Austria, hopped a flight to Sicily.
Holy
It's just everything. The only place I didn't go to England, actually, surprisingly, because it was really close. I just didn't get around to it, but it was just an opportunity. And I've never been back, so I keep saying I want to go back. I want to go back, and then before you know it, like 20 years has gone by, and it feels like a lifetime ago when I
hmm
think I see pictures and I look back at it. Like, oh, I'm so young, and I wish I wish I had taken more advantage of being over there. It was just such an amazing opportunity for me. But it did really force me to grow up, and it definitely prepared me to do well in nursing school. When I came back, I was super focused. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I got a job. I had actually, so I was a lab tech in the Air Force. And so when I got home, I was able to get a job at a local medical lab in the same type of position, which was great. So I got hired right away. I had no issues. But because I think just the field I was in,
hmm
healthcare, it's really easy to transition when you're in healthcare. So,
Yeah, that's probably true because I mean, a lot of veterans, we don't go down like a career path like that while we're in,
mhm,
which is probably, like, I think about this stuff all the time now. It's like if I could go back and redo some things, I would definitely try to get like a different rate than what I was doing,
mhm,
because it didn't. There's jobs for it, but it's not something I love to do. It's like I don't really want to do this my whole life. But kind of like you're saying, you had like your path. You knew what you want to do. I went. It's 18 years old. Also,
mhm,
like a lot of other people are just trying to get away from where you are
right.
and kind of winging it. Like all the countries I went to, I wish I would have. Man, if I wouldn't have partied so much and actually
Right.
traveled these countries,
But
because
you don't know when you're 18,
ah,
you're just not, you don't have the life experience. You're just, I look at kids now, 18-year-olds, and they're just babies, right? They're so
oh
young.
yeah,
And there we were just like gone doing this as 18 with no life experience, nothing, no perspective at all. But that's what it's about, I guess, is building all of that,
yeah,
making
and
those
and
mistakes and learning from them.
it's crazy the responsibility you have at 18, 19 years old, like you're talking about growing up and doing things on your own
Yeah.
besides just doing laundry and like your everyday stuff by
Right.
yourself. The type of responsibility you have
Yeah.
in the military is totally different than
Oh.
going straight to college, how high school, and you're working part-time at a job. It's
Mm-hmm.
like people's lives could be involved or
Right.
whatever the case may be. You mess up and you have no like the training for it too. I tell people it kind of insane, or at least it's probably different for nursing in the
Mhm.
military, but for what I did, I'm sure many others, the schooling was like 3 months, and then you're on a carrier, which is like
Mhm.
one of the most dangerous jobs in the world.
Wow.
And you have no real training. All of a sudden, there's jets taking off, and it's like, oh crap! You're just figuring this thing out on the fly, and it's
Yeah.
crazy to
Yeah.
have that responsibility at such a young age.
Yeah.
But it's extremely important, I think, for kids to experience that, that type of level of commitment too. It's not something you could just quit one day
That's right.
or call in sick. You can't
That's
mail it
exactly.
in.
I was up every day at 4:30 in the morning because I worked the early shift at the hospital and had to get there. I had to go draw the blood and all the patients first thing in the morning, and just part of what you did. You just did it. So.
It's kind of a thankless job, like a career path. Even even now, like I think they're starting to get more traction for veterans and um, helping them in transition and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
I feel like that's just recent, and it's still kind of like baby
Mhm.
steps right now.
Yeah, no,
But
I agree. I agree.
man, it's just it's it's crazy to think of what people go through and then that transition, getting out,
Mhm.
and that level of importance. I think is hard to duplicate for almost anybody, unless you have a kind of a career path already in
Mhm.
mind that you're going down.
Yeah.
maybe even so, even if you do have that career path in mind, I'm sure it's still, there's times where like, oh man, this is totally different. It's not the same as what I was doing or something like that.
No, it was scary. I mean, I came home, it was 4 years after, it was almost like a time warp, right? So I came home and everybody had just kind of been going on with their life in the past 4 years. And so reintegrating into that was definitely different. I was, 4 years older. And then, I got home and then 9/11 happened. I mean, I'll never forget. Had just started school because it was September 11th. So I had just started the week before, and I was getting ready that morning to go to school, and watching the news, like a lot of other Americans, like literally saw the plane fly into the Trade Center when I was watching the Today Show. And at the time, the guy I was dating, who was still in the military, he was still in Germany, and they were getting ready to deploy him. He was military police, and it was just crazy, right? And so, life for everybody changed at that point. But I just kind of put my head down and got through school, buckled down, did what I had to do. I was just really laser focused on getting through nursing school, and I did. I made it through, and I knew I wanted to be a critical care nurse. That was what I wanted to do. I didn't want to, everybody else had other specialties, but I wanted to take care of like the sickest of the sick. So I was really lucky. I graduated and I got into the Maine Medical Center, which is the biggest trauma center in Maine. And I got hired into their critical care unit. And I took care of some really, really sick patients for a couple of years. My uncle is an anesthesiologist, and he was in the Navy for several years. And then he transitioned to the Air Force, actually. And he was in Iraq and, worked on all the trauma. And he would tell me that, it was similar to critical care because we would see, motorcycle accidents, attempted suicides, just like the worst stuff. And so I did that for a couple of years, and it kind of burnt me out. Actually, it was really traumatic to see after a while. And so I transitioned into a more community-based hospital. So when I did that, I was fortunate to become. I got to do some different things, and it was a smaller hospital, had more opportunities, and started to get into quality and patient safety. So I would, we do more education, teaching other nurses how to take care of patients, working more with families, working a lot with physicians. And that sort of put me on a trajectory out, so it took me out of the bedside. So I no longer actually cared for patients, but I worked with people to make their care safer. And that was, an eye-opening experience because, hospitals can be a scary place to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in a few, and it's funny because my dad's very, very similar in that sense. Like there's an eerie feeling to me every time I go in a hospital. Even like when my kids were being born, you almost just, I don't know, it just feels uncomfortable. Sometimes you're walking through the halls and trying to get to your room. I don't know, hospitals freak me out. I've never had to go for myself, luckily, but there's definitely like that feeling like, man, there's, I don't know, I just always think, man, somebody probably died in that room and I'm walking right by it.
Yeah.
Or, it's just weird feeling.
Well, even more than that, it's, and everyone in healthcare that I know, they go into it because they want to help people. They want to take care of people. But healthcare has just become so complex, and, the nurses that I know now, they're trying to multitask all day long. They're trying to take care of their patients. They're trying to document in the computer. They're, answering phone calls. They're dealing with families. And, the art of nursing has really become buried under all of these other things that nurses are responsible for. And so what happens, unfortunately, is that sometimes errors happen. And that's what I really meant by scary, is that if you've ever had a loved one in the hospital, I mean, I would never leave if my child or my partner were hospitalized, I would never leave them alone because, quite honestly, bad things happen. And, that's my job, is to work with hospitals now to help them put in place strategies so that bad things don't happen, but it still does. I don't know, just recently in the news was a case from Vanderbilt Hospital down in Tennessee, or Kentucky, sorry, and it was a case where a nurse gave the wrong medication to a patient, and the patient died. And the nurse actually was convicted of negligent homicide.
Holy crap.
So, it's it's a scary time to be in healthcare, and a lot of nurses, especially after the pandemic now, are leaving the field because they're just tired. They're exhausted. They've been caring for really, really sick patients for the past 2 years, and they're just exhausted, and they don't feel like they're being supported, and so they're leaving. So, as a nurse leader now, I really am, trying to figure out ways to help build resilience of other nurses, to help healthcare leaders, hospital executives, really find the resources to support nurses, because what are we going to do if there's no nurses? We're facing a huge shortfall of nurses. In 20 years, I don't know how many nurses are going to be retiring, but a lot. And there's just we don't have the nurses in the pipeline to replace all of them. So it's an interesting time for healthcare in general, and then, of course, when I had my diagnosis, talk about, to be a nurse and a patient at the same time is an interesting position to be in.
So you're still working when you first got? Wow.
Yeah.
Or did you work throughout every?
I did.
Treatment?
I did. I worked throughout my treatment. So I was diagnosed about 3 years ago, and so long story short, I actually found a lump in my breast, and I went to my doctor and I told her, and of course she was like, all right, well, let's go get you an ultrasound. Did that, and then radiologist said, look, it looks kind of weird. I think you should get a biopsy. So I'm still like, okay, it's just a lump, it's fine. I was 42 years old, totally healthy, never had anything wrong with me at all. Did the biopsy, and then I'll never forget, I was at work that day, and my doctor called me, and she said, you have, unfortunately, Shannon, you have triple negative breast cancer. And I said, what is that?
Yeah, I've never heard it described like that before. What?
Yeah, so of all the breast cancers to get, it's the worst one. It's the most aggressive, and the triple negative piece just means that it doesn't respond to the 3 big hormone groups. So some women have breast cancer that responds to estrogen, and some women have other kinds. But triple negative means it's negative to all 3 of those kinds, which is a bad thing because there is no targeted therapy for it, which makes it more difficult to treat, and it is a faster growing one. So anyway, I, after kind of having a mini meltdown when I got my diagnosis, I just said, okay, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to kick this cancer's ass? I'm 42. I have 4 kids. I don't have time for this shit, basically. And so my doctor was like, okay, well, come on in. And, I had a team of my oncologist and my breast surgeon and my primary care physician, and they were amazing. And, I think they knew that I was a nurse, so I had some level of knowledge around, healthcare, but cancer, to me, I wasn't a cancer nurse, so I didn't understand it all. So I had a lot of learning to do, but right out of the bat, about 3 weeks later, they started me on chemotherapy, and I did 6 months of chemo, and I worked the whole time. I would have my sessions every 2 weeks. I'd go to the hospital for a whole day, and I'd bring my laptop, and I would work. It was this big room, and it was probably 20 patients. We all were in these chairs, these recliner chairs, and they'd hook me up. I had a port, so they'd hook me up to the port, and I would just work, and I'd sit in there and I'd do conference calls and work all day. The chemo,
that's extremely impressive, because I know if that were me, I would have been like, I'm calling out every day. You guys will.
It kept me going. It kept me going to not be thinking. I didn't want to think about the cancer. So the work helped me take my mind off it, and it made me feel like I was somewhat normal to be able to do the work. And I was afraid that if I stopped, then I would just be like this cancer patient, and I didn't want to be a cancer patient. I was a nurse that was going through cancer treatment. So I did that, and I got through it. It was pretty, it was rugged, but it was 6 months. I got through it. And then I did a double mastectomy because, again, I'm a badass. I was like, take them both. I'm like, I'm not going to like worry about it coming back in the other one. So they did that, and I had some reconstruction surgery. And then I did 6 more months of chemo after that. So June marks this June. So next month will be 2 years cancer free. So it marks when I finished all of my stuff. Yeah. So
well,
5 years is the mark. Thank you. 5 years is like the mark. When you can make it to 5 years, then you're pretty much out of the woods. So I'm 2 years in, and I'm like, okay, 3 more years to go. And then my risk for reoccurrence drops back down to somebody who has not had cancer before.
Oh, so so there's definitely light there at the end of the tunnel, in a sense. You're getting closer and closer. And it's been something that's happened in my family, breast cancer. When I was in boot camp, actually, my aunt had passed away from breast cancer. My grandma's had it twice, I think, and she did the same thing. She just double mastectomy and took them off. And I mean, but I think it's smarter to do that. That's just probably a guy's perspective, but no, if I were in that spot, I'd probably do the same thing. It's either that or living, especially when you got kids and I
didn't want to. If there was anything, I said, "What can I do?" Like, give me all my options, and I was like, "I'm just gonna do whatever I can," because I just didn't want to give it any chance to come back.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure it hits different when you have kids. I've thought about things like that before. If something were to happen to me now that I have kids, it's not just, oh, it happened to me. Now I got my wife, my kids. What are they going to do? Yeah. So yeah, it's like one of those things. As you get older, perspective changes too. Like I think of all the stupid crap I did when I was younger. I think everybody does. You're just living life. You're not thinking about other people. Like, what if something were to happen to me? I never thought when I was in the Navy or even afterwards, like, man, if I get super crazy tonight, what's going to happen? What will my mom think or my dad if something happens?
It changes your life when you have kids, right? It just makes you.
Yeah, it really does. But that's crazy. Was there any part too when you get diagnosed and that there's this like nursing kind of like shortage and like overusage happening? Is there any part of you that even thought like, this is scary because now I'm a patient and I know what's going on in the industry as a whole right now? So it's like you guys better be minding your T's and Q's.
So it's funny that you said that, because that's how I was, and I'll never forget like my first session, and because I'm also an infection prevention nurse, so my job was to make sure people wash their hands and that they put the right skin antiseptic on before they stuck needles in people. And so that first time I was getting treated, I'll never forget the chemo nurse when she came over. I said to her, look, I know you might have just washed your hands out in the hallway. I said, but I really need to see you wash your hands before you touch my port. And she kind of looked at me like she was taken aback by it. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm not trying to come off here, it's difficult, but I said, this is my body. And I said, I know what is probably on your hands. I said, so I need you to wash them. And she did. And after that, it was kind of like that first time, it was like me letting them know, like, listen, I know enough to be a pain in your ass. And so we had to come to this mutual level of respect, which we did. I did get in trouble a few times because I would adjust. Well, I'd be sitting there and the IV and the medication, it would be infusing into my port. And when the medication bag gets empty, what happens is air gets into the tube, and then the air comes down and it can go into your body. And so I would clamp the line off when it was done, and they'd come over and say, Shannon, you should not touch that line. I said, hey, I'm a nurse. Okay. I've done this before. But they're like, but you're a patient now, Shannon, you're a patient. So it was difficult at times, but we made it through. And in the end, I love those nurses. I brought them. I actually had a whole big box of whoopie pies from Maine, because Maine is known for their whoopie pies. I had a whole box of whoopie pies shipped down to them as my thank you, because they were so amazing and they helped me get through a really, tough 6 months. So I'm grateful to my team of chemo nurses. That's a tough job. That's a tough job. that's rugged. And for them to come every day and to do that and take care of all those patients, that says a lot about their dedication
Mm-hmm.
to nursing.
Yeah, it's my mother-in-law is actually going through treatments right now. She had a tumor that they found in her neck, and it's cancer, so she's doing treatments too. And yeah, I can only imagine like that line of work where you're treating all these individuals. If there's 20 chairs, they're all full,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and and just the mental wear. Like I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, just from the job itself. I mean, I'm sure you become friends with these patients or on some type of level, and if something happens, they don't make it. I'm
Right.
sure that hits home at a different, more so than if it were, if a dog or anything like that. I mean, these are strangers. You get to know that they have families and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it's a little bit different.
Nurses do develop relationships. When I was in the ICU, I cared for many, many patients. And I'll never forget this one. It was an elderly gentleman. He had been driving with his wife, who was also, they were in their 80s or something. And he actually ran through a light and he was T-boned. And his wife died. He survived. He, got admitted, was in my ICU, and he was probably, sedated and on a ventilator for probably 6 weeks, because he had just multiple fractures, head injury, everything. Oh. And, I was his primary nurse. So I took care of him every day that I was there. I took care of him, and I got really, really close with his family. And I'll never forget, when we finally were able to, lift his sedation and wake him up, and his family was all there, and the first thing he asked for, where's my wife? He had no idea that she had passed. So, just supporting that family through that hard time. And, I kept in touch with them a lot, afterwards. For a while. They would email and, give me updates on how he was doing. But you really do, you form a bond. And, physicians, the rest of the care team, they're all critical, right? They're all really important. But there's just something about that relationship that patients form with their nurses that, I remember, the nurses that took care of me when I was in the hospital having my surgery. I wrote a letter afterwards and just thanked them and said, thank you. And I know it was a pain in the ass, but thank you for taking such good care of me, because it is a hard job. It's a hard job.
Well, yeah, like we said, it's kind of a thankless job. It's kind of one of those jobs to me that people, you hear more negative stuff about than the positive stuff, like when it comes to the news and stuff like that. Like especially during the pandemic, they're saying, nurses don't want to wear masks, nurses don't want to do this. But there's no talk about these individuals are working 3 or 4 days straight and dealing with the sickest people you could possibly deal with. And I think the kicker for anybody would be a lot of the people that did die during the pandemic, they died alone. Like their families couldn't even go in there and say their farewell or anything.
They were putting iPads up to patients' ears so they could hear. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a time, like it feels surreal now when I think about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy because it feels like it was forever ago already. But it was like just last year where we were living in this super crazy time where you couldn't really do anything. And like my wife had actually gone to emergency room not too long ago, and the same thing, I couldn't go in there. She had to be in the room by herself. Even when our daughter was born, she was born last year. Same thing, I had to wait in the car till like the final second, which is stressful as hell, because then I was running with all these bags through the hospital, like, damn, what room is she in? And
right,
it's like the baby's coming like any second. It's like, oh crap.
right, well, there.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know where she's at. I don't even know what side of the hospital. I'm on the right side. But it is one of those jobs, though. I think, like you're saying, for doctors, physicians, and nurses, even like when you walk in and they take your name, like nobody talks about any of those people, and they just get negative news all the time. Oh, they don't want to do this. They don't want to. They're complaining about this, and they're not letting families do it. Well, honestly, they don't really have a choice. It's kind of the rules that's put in place.
I've tried to. I've tried now at this point in my life, going through all these different experiences. Being in the Air Force, and then beating cancer and really the path that my nursing has taken me on. I've really started to embrace the opportunities. I look at everything that's good or bad that's happened to me. I see it as an opportunity for me to continue to grow. And one of the things that I'm really focusing on right now is, like I said, more advocacy work, particularly around women, veterans, and breast cancer. There's been some studies. Was it Walter Reed did a study in 2009 that showed that military women had a 20 to 40% chance of developing breast cancer, compared to the average population, where it's around 12%, and particularly women of color in the military. So, this is an issue that I want to bring more focus to. There was a woman, Dr. Kate Hendricks Thomas, who actually just recently passed away on April 5th at 40. She was 42 years old. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at 38. So she fought for 5 years, but she was a researcher, a writer, an educator, and she served. She was a Marine. She served in Iraq. She came home, got married, got her PhD, was carrying on with her life, and her primary care doctor told her one day, Kate, I think you should go get a mammogram. And she said, why? I'm not 40. And her doctor said, no, I think you should. There's some evidence that women that serve in Iraq and other war zones where there's burn pits. That's
what I was thinking. I wonder if that had something to do with it. Was the burn pits?
Yep. And so she went, and her mammogram showed she had stage 4 cancer. So from a screening mammogram, so stage 4 is, of course, the worst. She had metastasized cancer throughout her body. And so she fought for the next 5 years. She fought, and she actually was a huge advocate for this. And she was, she's done a lot of, podcasts, and she was on Jon Stewart's show, and really was, I would say, probably the biggest advocate out there for this. And like I said, she just passed away a little over a month ago. She left a husband and a 7-year-old son.
Oh,
but the work that she did was really bringing attention to the risk of the burn pits, and not only for breast cancer, but for prostate cancer, for throat cancer, for men and women that were exposed to it. And the real risk is this delayed onset of cancer, because you could be exposed to the burn pits and then get discharged, come home from your deployment, and then may even be discharged, and then it's not until years later that you are diagnosed. So there's a lot of legislation now, a lot of discussion in Washington around enacting new laws, really reform around military benefits, paying for treatment of cancers related to burn pits, paying for health medical disabilities related to burn pits. But there's a lot of pushback on it, and Kate was a big advocate for that. And but even some of these, some of the bills that came out that were sponsored were very strong in the beginning, but then they get, as they make their way through the system, they get watered down and things get added to them. There isn't a bill right now. It's called the Service Act, and it's actually pushing for younger women in the military to have better access to mammograms, and particularly right after deployments. So hopefully, this is going to be something that will get passed into law. There's some other bills out there that are looking to require every state have mammograms available as part of their VA health. And believe it or not, some states, my state, New Jersey, does not have mammography service in the VA hospitals. So veterans, it's crazy. We have multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment to do surgery on people, but we don't have mammography services in the VA hospitals in New Jersey. VA New Jersey has actually contracted with an outside service, so they have a process in which veteran women can get referrals to a service to get their mammogram, but it adds an extra step. And all of those extra steps, the more steps you have to go through to get something done, the less likely you're going to do that, right? Yep. It's just another challenge for a woman to navigate. It's more phone calls. It's dealing with, the insurance. It's dealing with, getting referrals. And so all these challenges exist. There is, like I said, there are bills. hopefully that will get passed that will improve access to mammography services, because that is the number one thing right now, is to get these women that have been exposed. And it's similar that they've done studies, and the actual the fumes and the toxins that are generated by these burn pits are exactly the same of what the 9/11 responders dealt with. And so, the faster that women can get screened, the better that they will be. It's just a travesty that Dr. Hendricks Thomas, she wasn't diagnosed until she was stage 4, and there's other women out there like that as well. So I'm actually working. So my hospital that I got my treatment at, I asked them if they would partner with me on a breast cancer wellness event. And June 12th is National Women's Veteran Appreciation Day. And several states recognize that. New Jersey is one state that has actually recognized that, which is wonderful. And so it's right? Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Go to Jersey. So in recognition of Women Veterans Appreciation Day on June 11th, where I'm actually going to be hosting with my hospital, Capital Health. We're calling it Resilient Warriors, and it's a breast cancer event that we're going to invite veteran women to come, and they're going to hear about how to get screening and the importance of screening. And we're doing some yoga. We're going to talk about, the importance of healthy eating, and we're just going to kind of talk about survivorship and how to deal with after treatment, because even though your chemo is done, it's never really over. You deal with the struggles for a long, long time. There's a lot of physical and cognitive and mental side effects that last a long time. And so I really want to just be more of an advocate for women. I want to bring more attention to this issue. I'm hoping through our discussion today that we'll do that. I wanted to just give a plug for, it's called burnpits360.org. That is an advocacy group. John Stewart works for them. Dr. Hendricks Thomas was involved with them. They're bringing a lot of attention to this for both men and women veterans.
I remember hearing about that, the burn pit situation. It just, I want to say it's maybe the beginning of this year or late last year. There was some traction on the news about it, and it kind of, just dissipated a little bit, and it kind of went away. But it reminded me of a story. So when I was still in the Navy, my best friend, a couple of people from our ship, volunteered to go on deployment on another ship. I think it was USS Reagan, if I remember correctly. And this is right when Japan had the hurricanes and the nuclear plant leaked into the ocean. Well, they responded. They went there, and it kind of made me think with the burn pits and from what they've told me, what they were kind of forced to do, because they were getting exposed to all this radiation. Like one of the guys that, when they came back, he said this is kind of crazy, but he said there's a seagull on the flight deck. He kicked in and exploded, and green stuff started coming out of it. And they had to wash them down every time they came down from the flight deck. They're testing them for radiation, but they made them sign a waiver or some sort of thing, basically covering their own ass a little bit. And God, I feel like it was just a couple years ago I saw something come up with that, and they're saying, hey, were you wronged during this time on deployment or in the military, whatever it was? It was like a law office trying to help veterans navigate through that, because they sign these waivers, and what are you going to do when you're in the middle of all this thing? I can't even imagine in that situation getting stripped down, hosed down, and sign this waiver, by the way. And like you said, kind of like those burn pit situations, it might not show up 2-3 years after you get out, but now it's been 20 years and something pops up, and you're like, well, what the hell? And that's where it stems from. Yeah,
John Stewart has been a huge advocate for 9/11 survivors, and the recovery and the rescuers down there, but now even with veterans as well. And he said that this is the true cost of war, right? This is the true cost, and it's these delayed onset diagnosis that our vets are being diagnosed with years after. And it's so hard to try to get, Congress, the administration, and the VA to recognize that. I think as more people start to talk about it, but what we really need is more research and data to show it, right? We can talk all day, but the data has to be there. So hopefully, Walter Reed, other organizations, the federal government will fund studies on women veterans, and male veterans too, just because you have to have that data to be able to show that this is a real thing, and they need to fund.
Yeah, and the sad part to me is that all these things, like things that get brought to light, are by service members. There's no we just did a walk for veteran suicide awareness a couple weekends ago, and I think just from veterans I've talked to and just getting to be around other veterans and seeing how they operate and dive into what they think a little bit. The VA, I don't like to always bash the VA because there's some good things with the VA, but I think there's so much runaround with the VA, and a lot of veterans, like in a situation where they might need to get tested for cancer or their hearing, like whatever it may be, they back problems. There's just so many hoops and hurdles you have to jump through.
Absolutely.
For an organization that says they're there to help, but then you just get steered and turned so many different ways, and you're kind of just left to your own means of figuring things out. And that's why all these little groups do pop up, where they're veteran owned or veteran organized groups, because I think somebody brought up too, they're like, we're 1% of the population, but nobody really speaks out for us. There's a handful of people that maybe do, but to make any real change, it seems like veterans really have to do all the legwork themselves. Congress and stuff, they thank you for your service, and that's it. There's no real backbone to help us out, in a sense, just kind of left to our own devices. So,
well, I'm going to do my part as a loudmouth nurse. And they actually, I'm on the New Jersey Commission for Women Veterans, and that has been a great opportunity for me. And the commission, one of our 3 goals is advancing healthcare and awareness of breast cancer, other veteran related diseases. And so I'm going to be right out there in front as much as I can, because we need to bring more attention to this, and not just on Memorial Day weekend. And not just on, National Women Veterans Appreciation Day, but all year round.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes, right? There's the Veterans Week, or it becomes Veterans Week on Veterans Day now. So it's like we get like these little moments throughout the year where people donate and they blast it all over the news, and then it just goes away. Like, that's it.
Right.
And all right, now you guys are back to fending for yourselves, figure it out.
But I do think that as veterans, and part of that has taught us that we do have to advocate for ourselves, and we do have to be our own support a lot of the time. And I think that makes us stronger. It doesn't make it right, but it makes us stronger, and I think it makes us more equipped to be able to handle some of these challenges. I'm just trying to leverage those strengths, and that's what I tell my kids. We talk about tough times, and when they go through. Your kids are young, right? You said
I have a 3-year-old and she's gonna be 10 months. So yeah,
you wait. When they're mine are 13, 12, 10, and 7, and it's all drama all the time, right? They're middle school, and so I have to give them perspective, and so I say, look, I joined the Air Force. I went through boot camp. I went overseas. I, did all this on my own. I came back. I put myself through nursing school. I fought cancer. I'm like, that is the real, that's the real deal. And, I said, you guys have this strength in you. If I was able to literally pull myself up by my bootstraps and do this, so can you. And so we're, trying to set that example. And you'll have those safe conversations. I'm sure.
They're important to have. Like my father was like that. I mean, he didn't join the military, but 17 years old or 18, whatever, he graduated high school, he moved out on his own. He was born in Mexico, so he was first generation basically here. And really, I always say, like, he's a perfect example of like the American dream in a sense, because he grew up in like the projects. He really pulled himself out and provided for three kids, and bought a house. Is like, hey, he might not be a millionaire, but the odds were stacked against him to fail. So growing up, I guess subconsciously was taking in everything he would tell me, because as a kid, you're just like, oh, whatever, I don't want to hear it. Same thing with my grandpa, who was in the Navy. Very strong man, opinionated, a lot of pride between the two of them. And when I got older and I joined the military and getting out, and it's funny, I told my dad all the time, like, I think I'm becoming more like you the older I get. And it's kind of scary because I've gone through the hard times. I've been dirt poor and figured out ways to make 2 pennies become $10. There's just things you got to do to survive, which I'm not sure if I would have been able to if I hadn't gone the route I did. And there's one other thing I always think is, it stuck with me. My uncle told me, he was in the Army, and he said when he left home, he always knew the thing that's made him succeed and never move back in was knowing that if it ever got to the point where he desperately needed to go home, he could. And it's not the first option, he said, but it's an option, and it's so true. And I think a lot of people today, the first option is to panic and go straight home. They run back with the tail between their legs and help me out. There's no self-resolve anymore.
Right. I know. And it's hard to think about how we can teach our kids that. I mean, we do it by example. We try to set the example and show them, but there's so much against us right now, right? Between, social media and everything else that's going on. It's hard. This is a interesting time to be a parent of young children. Every generation has their own challenges, but I think we have very unique challenges.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing how, having social media now, I can't even imagine being in school with this stuff. It would have been crazy. Like thinking, because I know bullying became like a thing, or it is still a big issue. I'm not gonna say it became a thing, but back in the day, you get bullied, but then it'd like stop at school. You'd go home and it'd be over.
Right.
But now today they get messages. They're getting like people. I'm sure kids post crazy pictures about kids, and it just never stops. I don't know how kids do it.
Yeah, I've had to have with my 13-year-old son like real life conversations with him, and I mean, really, and I'm just very blunt, and I've always been that way with him, and I think he respects that because he knows I'm a nurse, and so I've always talked to him just like about your body, about how you're feeling, about his mental health, about I say don't ever send pictures of your naked body to people. We talk about girls, and we talk about if you're ever with a girl, you have to understand about how when to not cross the line. We talk about those types of issues. He's only 13, but I don't ever want him to fall into a situation where he's where there's mixed communication there, and then so we have very honest conversations, and I want to prepare him to be the kind of young man that respects women, but is very smart about the choices he makes. That's what we always talk about, making good choices, and really thinking about the consequences of his actions. So
he's going to be one of the few kids that are kind of old school in a sense, because
I hope so.
You see it all the time today. I'm just like, when I go somewhere, if I have like this kid's in a stroller or something, and the person in front of me just doesn't hold the door open, I'm like, for real? Like, can you just, like, they just walk in, let it close?
That's one of my biggest pet peeves too.
It is not holding the door open for somebody. My wife will make fun of me.
When I let someone pull out in front of me, I expect them to wave, like, thank you. Like, it drives me nuts when people do not wave. Like, come on, just wave.
Yeah, I mean, this happened actually just recently. I was visiting my parents, and there was like a Starbucks line or something right next to the sandwich shop that my mom and I went to go pick up some subs for everybody. And the line was kind of wrapping behind where we parked. Mm-hmm. So I put my, I'm going in reverse. I'm backing up, and this car just right behind me just stops. I'm like, for real? Like, what the? I was trying not to get crazy. My mom was doing enough yelling in the car for me, but just, man, that like just lack of awareness. I'm not sure if it's that or just not caring about the next person or anybody beside yourself. It just blows my mind sometimes.
Right. And you know what? And that's because we did serve, and because we were taught to have a situational awareness about what was going on around us. We were taught to recognize and, acknowledge authority, or, anyone, higher ranking, lower ranking. I mean, it is just, it just became part of what we do. And I think it just increases your level of respect. And, but you do take it personally when that respect is not shown.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a different level of anger when it happens. It's funny because I don't know, like when stuff like that happened, my mom was yelling. She's like, "You need a honk," but I was like, "Okay, I'm just trying to not lose my cool right now because I'm already, I'm like inside, I'm fuming. But if I get out of the car, it's just not going to be good, I just sit here for a second and let me process what's happening, and or else I'm going to lose it too."
Oh, trust me. Even as a nurse, there were many times where I would, be dealing with family members that were, and understandably, it's a really stressful time for them, right? Their loved ones in the hospital, they're just stressed out, they're scared, and a lot of times they would take out their anger or frustration on nurses, and you just kind of have to, take it and do your best to diffuse the situation, because you can't, yell at the patient or the family. You have to really work with them and understand where they're coming from and just diffuse it. I think that's taught me a lot of patience. I always say one of my grandmothers was a teacher, and my other grandmother was a nurse. And so I feel like I kind of got like the best of both of them. I don't know. I think it's the apple didn't fall far from the tree, I guess. So.
And that's a thing that happens for not only nurses though, when you have to deal with the person that's upset or yelling at you. I think of like police officers, firefighters, and first responders in just general. That must just suck sometimes, because you're trying to help people, and I can only imagine the stuff that y'all go through when people are hurt, or even a family member that's there and they're watching you treat their family member. They're like, "What the hell are you guys doing? What's wrong with them?" And you're trying to stay focused and help them all at the same time while you're getting chewed out. That got to be a different level of being able to tune out people.
I tried to really, from my own healthcare experience, I tried to take those lessons as being the patient. And so now, as a nurse again, I really try to remember how that felt, right? And how scary it was at times, or how frustrating it was when I had to sit in the waiting room for, an hour after my appointment time. So try to channel that, and it gives me a different perspective now when I'm dealing with patients about, because I've been in their shoes and I know what they're feeling and where they're coming from.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Like I've had some interesting jobs throughout the years. Like while I was in college, when I first got out, I was just really working like dead end jobs, working like at Lowe's and Home Depots and Kohl's and stuff like that. And it's like that's the first time I worked in customer service ever too. And the way people even in customer service talk to people, this is like, holy cow. I remember getting yelled at by a customer when I was at Lowe's, and I just thought, like, you know nothing about me, and you're just chewing my ass right now for no freaking reason. And it's like, man, is it really that big of a deal? And that's what I tell people all the time. I was like, if there's one thing I took away from the military, it's like I don't sweat the small things. Like, I think I got that guy was yelling at me I worked in garden. We didn't have like mulch or something, a certain mulch in stock. He's like, "How come you don't have it?" Cussing at me. And it's like, I don't know, dude. He's like, "It shows on the app or the online that you have it." Like, dude, I'm 22 years old, man. I don't know. I just work here like 20 hours a week, man. I don't know who orders this stuff. It's like,
it's mulch.
It's mulch. Yeah, don't get in your car and drive crazy off home, because you might hit somebody and you're gonna have real problems. It's like, gosh, just insane. The level of impatience that people have, and I'm fairly impatient, but man, some of these folks out here, they got a different level of impatience I've just never seen and encountered.
I don't take it personally. I don't take it personally because I feel like I don't know where they're coming from and what their experiences have been.
Mm-hmm.
But usually I'll just say it sounds like it's a personal problem with them. And, like,
Yeah, that's where I think I've gotten to now, because I've been out for 10 years. So like where I'm at now, I'm still doing, I guess, customer service, but in construction industry. Like,
okay.
especially right now, we don't have certain things because they're imported, like certain irons and metals and stuff like that. And it's holding up jobs and stuff. And it's just like, dude, it's everywhere. That's what I tell them. Like, it's happening everywhere. There's
Yeah.
nothing I could really do. I wish I
Right.
could, but
Yeah,
right.
no, I get it. So we have a side hustle, I call it, and our side hustle is we make farmhouse furniture, and yeah, it's the cost of lumber and
Yeah.
certain things we can't even get anymore. So yeah, it's crazy. It's the supply chain issues.
Yeah, it's
Crazy
real.
times.
I was
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of traveling last year for my company, and I did a lot of East Coast traveling, going to our different branches out there and talking to folks and standardizing stuff. And that's what everybody was saying. They're like, lumber's gone up and all this stuff, and it's pissing off all of our customers. It's contractors are upset because now we're charging double. And like, well, shoot, I'm sure they're charging double on whoever the hell they're requesting payment from too, because that's just the way the nature of the beast right
Everything.
now.
I mean, gas here in New Jersey is like, I mean, it's probably worse than where you are, but it's I think it was $4.68 a gallon today.
Yeah, it was 6 something the other day. I have a V4. I have a 4-cylinder, and it cost me 90 last time. I think $98 to fill up. A little Chevy Malibu.
Yeah, that's painful.
I was like, damn. And my dad has a truck, so when we visit them, I'm just like, how much are you guys paying? Because I'm paying $100 for my little car.
That's crazy. And everything, groceries is crazy. Everything is just out of control right now.
It is. It's a crazy time. That's for sure. And then on top of everything else, where you got all these different issues amongst, like you were saying, of our veterans, and we're all trying to figure out ways to combat that at the same time as everything else is going to hell in a handbasket, it seems like. So but I think it's great that what you're doing and hearing what other veterans are doing, and just that's what I love about doing this podcast is I get to meet folks like yourself and other individuals that are doing the same thing. They're finding a way to help other veterans, because that's all that's out there from what I can see for the most part, where you can reach out, help each other, whatever it is. Super hard. It's hard to find, and I think it's really picking up steam the last 3 or 4 years. It seems like it's starting to become more of a community than it was before. At least when I first got out, it seemed everybody was just left to the winds. Everybody's scattered and nobody talked to each other anymore. It's like, hey, we served with each other, bye. But now it seems like, yeah, that community's.
I am super proud that I served, and I a lot of the women here in New Jersey that I've connected with are in the same boat. Like it's part of their identity. They're really just proud of it, and we use those skills they transferred into what we're doing now in life. So I never want to forget that or hide that away. To me, that's part of who I am, and it's part of it's a huge part of how made me who I am in today and prepared me for a lot of those things that we talked about today. Mm-hmm. So I'm proud, and I know I'm actually going to our town's Memorial Day ceremony tomorrow, and I know I will get emotional because I feel it. Like I feel it in here, right? Mm-hmm. And I just really feel fortunate that I had the opportunity to serve. Even if it was a short amount of time, but it's still it's something that lives with me forever. Like nobody can ever take that away.
It really does too. I remember the first baseball game I went to in San Diego after I got out of Padres Stadium, and they play a national anthem. I think that was probably the first time I got goosebumps hearing the national anthem.
Because it means something to you. Because you did right.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. Even if it was just 4 years, what my family went through, what I went through, and I met my wife while I was stationed down there. So she went through the last 2 years. She was going to college of my service. She dealt with that with me. And so it's like it's a pride aspect of it, and you feel proud for your family and everybody that's with you on that journey, because it's like you all went through it together. That's what I always tell my mom on Veterans Day. It's like it's much as my day as it is yours. I mean, I still haven't moved home, so it's like it's a family affair, and it's awesome. It's a great thing to be a part of. That's for sure. So, well, all right, Shannon. Thank you so much for coming on, though. Really appreciate it. Yeah. So, any final words for everybody out there to keep motivated or something from you?
I would just say to all of the women, hopefully some women listen to this, and if you are a veteran and you are between 30 and 40 years old, get your breast cancer mammogram screening. Do it, just do it. And if you can't get a mammogram, do your self checks, stay on top of it, be aware of it. But that's what saved me, was I had an early diagnosis. And so, ask your doctor, get screened.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll keep in touch and stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was great talking to you. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.
Great. Bye.
Greatly appreciate you for tuning in, watching this podcast, or listening to it via Spotify or YouTube. Please like and subscribe below. Click on the alert button so anytime there's a new episode, you will find out. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.